parents had turned to religion in November of that year by a friend of younger brothers. This friend had invited my brother to a weekend camp. He came back a Jesus warrior. My dad went with my brother to see what these outings and meetings were all about, and came back converted as well. My mother soon followed. They gathered all sorts of Christian stuff, began holding prayer meetings in their home, and began stripping the house of anything non-Christian-like. A week after my family's conversion, weird things began to happen to the house. I still lived with my folks at this time, and we just moved my grandma in to help her deal with my grandpa's death. At night I began to hear voices. It sounded like someone walking up and down the stairs. My bedroom was in the basement. Everyone else's bedrooms, the bathroom, and kitchen were all upstairs. I was a little creeped out, but dismissed it as wind or house settling noises, and soon took no notice of it. Then the problems began to escalate. Our VCR, stove clock, cable box, etc. would randomly flash 666 or 999, and then go back to showing the normal time. The television would try to go to channel 666, which usually ended up to going 66, then 6. I shouted at whatever it was to stop one day, and the TV just turned right off. My entire family was in the room to witness this. The prayer fest and Bible read that resulted was quite epic, with my parents getting extremely angry that I would have none of it. I was quite fascinated with all this and had never experienced anything paranormal before. It was scary, but it was just so interesting as well. Soon we could tell the television to turn off or on. My parents yelled Jesus' name, added a bunch, placed a Bible on top of the TV, and forbid anyone from touching it. It would turn on itself, but my parents tried very hard to ignore it, or I would immediately switch it back off. A few more days passed. Now it's affecting my brother's stereo. The prayer group would come over, assemble in the living room, and begin to pray. Suddenly the stereo would turn on, volume blasting heavy music or static throughout the whole house. Too scared to touch the actual stereo, my brother unplugged it from the wall to silence the menace. We all departed the house. My parents said goodnight to the church group and went out for dinner at a local spot. When we returned, all the candy dish on the kitchen counter was arranged in a cross on the stove. Not an upside down one or anything like that, just a cross. My mother, obviously distressed, cleaned up the candy and decided that everyone had to turn in early that night. Her and Dad helped Grandma to bed, then stayed up to read their Bibles. I retired to my room to browse the internet before falling asleep around 2 a.m. I went to work the next day as normal, but when I came home, I found my room had been tossed. I angrily asked my parents what the F was going on, and they told me that the church group had come over and gotten rid of all the horrible things I had that were causing angry spirits to stay in the house. These horrible things were thrown out and are burned. There were 6 years of sketchbooks, movie posters, mystery novels, alternative religion books, and my little ceramic animal figurines. I was furious, and I called a friend to let me stay at their place that night. The next day after work, I returned home to try to speak some sense into my parents. I was angry, but they were still my folks. I called to let them know I was returning, then I arrived a few hours later. We sat down to talk, and suddenly church people emerged from the bedrooms and began chanting songs and sprinkling oil all over me. I yelled in surprise and stood up, and my mother hugged me and began to whisper, "Oh, thank you, Jesus," over and over again. I tried to break away, now really angry and somewhat scared about what these crazy people would do to me, since they obviously thought I was possessed or something. Suddenly the candy dish flew off the counter and embedded itself in the far wall. The TV turned on full blast. A picture of my parents was flung off the wall, striking my younger brother in the head. My mom finally let go of me, and I ran for the stairs, pausing when I heard a noise in the hall to my left. Pictures began flung off the wall in sequence, one after another, as if someone was walking towards me and knocking them down as they came down the hall. I made a noise in my throat, but found I couldn't scream, and I found myself running down the stairs, out the front door. Behind me, the wardrobe we had in the entryway swung away from the wall and against the bottom of the stairs, blocking anyone else from escaping, except out the back door and down the porch stairs. I called the same friend in a panic, begging her to come and get me. She arrived a half an hour later, and I went to her place with nothing but my clothes on my back. called my parents the next week later. Apparently, they had the church group do a cleaning, and everything had slowed down. However, they didn't want me to come back and damn the house again. So my friend brought me back long enough to pack a bag, and I moved out my parents' house that day. My parents and I are speaking terms again, but I have since March 2010. They still hear footsteps and such, but nothing like what happened before. They got rid of the old TV, and my old room is now my brother's room. Nothing weird. In a few years I've lived with my friend. However, my new apartment has some creepy things happen, which I will expand on further in other stories. It appears I may have been damning the house after all.